So for those who don't know me, my name is Chris McKenna. I'm the Office and Manager Partner here at Foley and Lardner. I welcome the Hellenic Innovation Network and the tagline fueled by Greek startup power. And from the startups I've seen so far, there's plenty of power there, so very impressed so far. For those who may not be familiar with Foley, and I don't expect all of you to be, I always like to start off with how old we are. We're over 185 years old. Now, when I say that with a Greek audience, I'm mindful that the timeline and history of Greece is much, much longer. And every time I go to Greece, I'm reminded how young the United States is. But in the context of the youth of the United States, that's a really long time for a law firm. So we're proud of that. And just like the Greek community is very proud of their people and culture, Foley is likewise. And one of our core principles for growing has been putting our clients and our people first. And over the years, we've grown to be over 1,100 attorneys, across 25 offices, and over $1 billion in revenue. We're pretty proud of that. And from legal needs, that platform with all that talent, we can handle A to Z. And we have lots of specialties. We talked to a lot of startups today and explained how we can handle a lot of their needs in technology and life sciences. And over the years, we've grown to apply a sector strategy where we focus applying that A to Z capabilities in sectors of life sciences and healthcare, innovative tech, manufacturing, and energy. And tonight, this event falls squarely in one of our sectors, life sciences. I know I'm very excited to see what the future of life sciences brings, especially from the Greek community. And what we've seen again from the power of the startups, it's very strong. So again, I welcome you tonight. I look forward to this great event. I'm going to pass the mic to our fellow Greek, 𝗕𝗏𝗃, who's going to say a few words.
Is this working? Great. Thanks, Chris. So I'll just briefly talk about why we're here. So maybe about 10 years ago or so, with the Greek last name, although my family, I'm multi-generations here in the U.S., but I've always had a strong feeling about sort of Greece with big family around, talking about Greece and visiting Greece when I was younger. So I had the opportunity about 10 years ago I was introduced to an emerging company from Athens and represented them. And from that, it's kind of, it's sort of multiplied. I've had a handful of young companies over the years from Greece that I've had oftentimes pro bono early on, that I've had the chance to represent. And I'm just amazed at over the last 6 or 7 years what's happened in Greece with the ecosystem and all these amazing tech and life science companies that are coming out of there. So it's been great to observe, but also be part of that. And we continue to represent companies. I've gotten Chris on board, who he and I have visited Athens a handful of times and met with young companies and VC funds, and that's expanded to our tax group. And we've had lots of lawyers now that are committed to sort of the Greek ecosystem. We just love it. We think it's fun. We love seeing, how it's advanced, and we're just thrilled to be part of the Hellenic Innovation Network and to be here tonight, to be able to host this event and to be able to, as an audience member now, just listen to the panel. I think it's going to be a great night. So again, thanks for letting us host, and we look forward to a great evening.
Thanks so much, Dave and Chris. Thank you so much for your incredible generosity. It was great. We had the startups here this afternoon, and thank you for sharing your space here with us and everything. Special thanks also to Simeon Tegos, who could not be here tonight, our Consul General, but who has been a great support for us and all our efforts. The Hellenic Innovation Network has a mission to accelerate innovation in Greece and thereby help employment opportunities. So the idea is the Israeli model, where startups can grow out of Greece, set up market-facing operations here in the U.S., but continue to have their development teams based in Greece, where there is so much great talent. It was an outgrowth of MIT Enterprise Forum Greece, which is now called Start Smart SEE, and Vasilis Papakonstantinou will talk a moment about that. We are a nonprofit organization based in the U.S., created with the support of the Consul General of Greece in Boston to facilitate access to resources, partners, and to help startups expanding out of Greece network here in the U.S. within this amazing tech ecosystem. And I'm really excited to tell you that if you didn't see it on social media, HIN has now expanded to Chicago, and they're having an event next week. So if you happen to be in town, please go and check it out. And we're talking about expanding to New York in the fall, thanks to 𝗦𝗫𝗁𝗁, who had this great idea. So we host these events twice a year. We also, George Demosthenes, George, where are you? You're here. Okay. Organizes our monthly CEO group meetings where the CEOs get together and exchange information. And thank you, George, for leading that effort. So if you want to make sure to be connected to the community, please register at hellenic.org, and you will be notified of all our future events. So Vasily, do you want to take it from here?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thanks to Chris and Dave for hosting not only this event, but also the Chicago event. So they're becoming HIN sponsors. As Marina said, HIN came out of MIT Enterprise Forum Greece, which as of last year was rebranded to Start Smart Southeastern Europe. The mission there was to get the MIT experience in growing deep tech startups out of Greece, and of course connecting them to the diaspora. We run a program, an acceleration program, twice a year. We just started the spring edition last week. We have an amazing cohort, 20 deep tech startups, many of them coming from universities all over Greece.
Here among you in this great ecosystem in Boston, not the ecosystem that I grew, which is mostly the one in Silicon Valley, but nevertheless, such a dynamic place to be. And super excited to be around amongst innovators, researchers, entrepreneurs, which is the heart of the value generation chain in this in our biotech world. I must say it feels a little bit awkward to be sitting on this side of the room, because over the past 30 years I've been accustomed to be sitting on your side, in one of you. And that tells me that I'm quite aware of the amazing dynamics of value creation and drug innovation, and the amazing potential that it brings every day. We don't need statistics to point this out, but we know that in the startup world, represent 70% of the drugs in phase 3 clinical development come from startup ventures, much like the ones that are represented today here in the room. And this is exciting, very exciting. Equally, I'm aware of the struggles and the challenges that startup creation, startup life brings about. Come up with the idea, find some initial money, go to the lab, do the work, create the data that will support a proof of concept that's hopefully going to be good enough to allow you to go back and do it all over again. And if you're lucky and you can do this several times, you can one day see your dream, the molecule you participated in inventing in the clinic. That is a very dynamic process and a very rewarding one. Yet we are all here, you're all here, you're doing it every day. And why is that? Because of one thing, your passion and your drive for innovation. When I met Eleni and her family, I saw the same thing. They explained me their vision, and what I saw right away is the passion that they had in bringing something of value to Greece. And at the same time, I saw the opportunity to create something in Greece that will bring value in life sciences, but not exclusively in Greece, hopefully beyond that. And over the past couple of years, we've been working on two main directions. And the first thing was creating a resource that can help startup companies in the process to create value. And that led us to actually create Acteon, A-C-T-E-O-N, Acteon, a boutique preclinical CRO that's intended to provide services that support generally companies, but mostly startup companies, in the drug discovery all the way to early preclinical development phases of a project. We have already started the work. We're setting up labs to provide, first of all, the basic services, things like DMPK, ADME, bioanalytical, and so on and so forth. In fact, like I said, we have 2 labs in Athens that are fully equipped, fully staffed, and ready to conduct these studies. We don't stop there. We're building a state-of-the-art new facility, about 16,000 square meters in the outskirts of Athens, close to the airport in Sparta, out of which more than 10,000 is going to be dedicated to R&D. And a big portion of this is going to provide the space and the facilities to support this preclinical CRO. This will allow us to keep on building gradually this preclinical resource that I mentioned with non-GLP and later, who knows, maybe even GLP services that support drug development all the way forward. Our goal there is to have actually to be a CRO that will provide quite personalized services that gear towards young startup companies, a very particular set of the value generation process. Because what we aim to provide is quality data that will help drive our clients, our startup clients' decisions. And from my experience, this single most important factor that dictates the success or not of a startup venture is the good quality data that drive good decisions. The second direction that we'll be working on is the creation of a biotechnology incubator in Greece. And in fact, we're only hosting 2 companies, which coincidentally represent the 2 different aspects, the 2 different ecosystems we want to be working with. One of them is a Greek-born, let's say, startup company that has been there for the last year. But the other one is a US-based, actually Boston-based, a venture, VC-backed venture that's established a small operation with a lab in our facilities. In fact, I believe the co-founder is somewhere here in the audience, and we're so happy to have him here. So this actually represents a very significant part of our mission, because what we want to do is establish an ecosystem that will be able to provide value. And we all know the value that one can find in Greece, from access to high quality talent, to low cost of operations, which all facilitate and help in maintaining a low cash burn rate and prolong the runway for every venture. In fact, it's not even a new model. It's a model that's been applied very successfully in Greece in the software business. But up until now, it wasn't possible to be applied in biotech. Why? Because simply biotech needs much more than a bench and a desk and Wi-Fi. And this is what we're planning on doing. We're planning actually to create the infrastructure with all the supporting systems that will enable the creation of a biotechnology incubator. As I mentioned earlier, in our Sparta facility, we plan to have space that will be fully dedicated to incubated companies with access to state-of-the-art equipment, all supporting services that will host, we believe, somewhere between 20 and 30 startup ventures. These 2 directions, basically, that I've just explained very, very briefly, by the way, set the stage of what we want to create in Greece, which is essentially create a home for biotechnology innovation within our country. But we don't want to build a standalone, isolated center somewhere in Greece. The big part of our value comes from the connections with the worldwide ecosystem, starting with the Greek diaspora, which has been instrumental in helping us build what we built so far, and we keep wanting to further build upon these relationships. The idea is that we can altogether help provide even more significant value, not only for Greece, but also, why not, globally. In finishing, I want to thank you, and in this journey that we've started, we're embarking actually. I would like to invite you to support us, to join us, whether you're a researcher, an entrepreneur, an investor, or a young scientist looking for a job. We'd love to get to know you, and who knows, maybe we can have the opportunity of working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to our main panel, and please be engaged. So if you have any questions during the panel, feel free to raise your hand. You're part of this conversation. So you don't have to wait till the end if you have something you want to say or something you want to ask. So I'd like to introduce our moderator, 𝗦𝗂𝗃. 𝗦𝗃𝗃 is an MD PhD. She studied in Athens Medical School, focused in research, trained at academic institutions in the USA. She was faculty at Boston Children's Hospital and moved to Greece when BRFAA was launched. Returned to Boston at the Weiss Institute at Harvard Medical School, joined the spinoff from Weiss, Emulate, as head of R&D, and then joined Regeneron Genetics Center at Regeneron Pharmaceuticals. So thank you, 𝗦𝗃𝗃, for moderating.
Thank you all for being here. I turn to welcome you, and I would like already the panelists, 𝗦𝗁𝗍, 𝗘𝗶𝗿, and 𝗏𝗏𝗏 that I would like to introduce. He joins us from Blackstone, and he is a senior managing director and part of the investment committee of Blackstone. And with a very impressive, I was looking at his short bio, and it is a very impressive journey in the investment world and all across the globe, actually, from Europe to Japan and to US, and he has been in leading positions from Serono, different other companies. He joined, he successfully sold companies, moved to the final stage, and personally, I know it happened because of my interest and my partnership with Takeda in the past. So for Takeda, and he sold another company to Novartis, and he's founder also of companies like Anthos Therapeutics and Athens Therapeutics, part also of non-profit organizations like the Life Science Cares, and also founding chairman of other companies. So no more to say. Thank you, Paris, for joining us. No? For me, oh, I thought 𝗦𝗁𝗍. So we've heard the introduction of the, I say it park a lot, objects, ELTP, and we'd like to learn more. And I will ask with some, start with some questions, and then please join me in the questions. It's much more important to have the discussion with the audience. So the first question, of course, you talked about the passion that you recognized and the commitment of the 𝗏 family. But beyond that, this is the passion, the dream. What made you go there? What are the realistic elements that you saw that maybe in Greece today versus the Greece that you left 30 years ago, like a lot of us?
Well, thank you for the question. It's an excellent one. Well, it would have been a very simple answer if I was saying, well, I'm getting close to retiring, so it's about time that I go there. But it has nothing to do with that. I feel like I'm very far away from that spot. So meeting 𝗦𝗁𝗍 and her family was actually the first most important factor in actually making a decision. Why? Because I saw the commitment and the passion of actually doing something. And coming from Greece, I know how important this is in getting anything done, no matter you're in Greece or elsewhere. But it wasn't just that. Greece has changed in many ways, and honestly, I'm discovering the ways it has changed every day, because it was almost like I was going back to a country that I did not know, and I had to learn everything from the beginning, including my Greek, by the way. But the second thing that was very important to me that actually made a little click was, okay, there's a neat idea, there's passionate people that support this idea. What about the researchers in Greece? How do they feel about this? So I went in Greece and I talked to a number of people that I knew from the old days, and I asked them, how do you feel about here? What do you think about, what would you think about a biotech incubator in Greece, about a center that would enable this home for innovation that I mentioned? And not only people were like, oh my God, this is a great idea, but they were like, how can I help? Or somebody would say, I have an idea for a startup venture, would you help me? So knowing that there's people out there, and I don't know if everybody's like that, but at least the people that I talked to were very much like that, gave me an aspect that, made this decision much, much easier. So
there is an ecosystem now that has changed, or what do you think that from your experience as you go from San Francisco back to Greece, and what is missing, what you find difficult to, that it takes time actually and to build in order to support this dream that you are all engaged in?
I'm actually not thinking as much in terms of San Francisco or Boston versus Greece. I'm not thinking about what I don't have in Greece, although this is a very important part of the equation because you need to have a critical piece of the puzzle there to allow you to do what we want to do. I'm thinking more in terms of what is there available to do in Greece. What do I have in Greece that I don't have here? And I found that, surprisingly to me at least, I found there are some things that I can have there that I'm not sure would be as easy to have here as well. Granted, there's much more that we need to do as a country, both in the academic field, in the entrepreneurial field, and the investment side of things. But I think that slowly the time has come. There's a critical mass of people that actually has gathered, understanding how important this is. And I think this is the critical mass that did not exist when I left Greece a very long time ago, I should say.
And not for Paris, because you join us, but I'm sure that there is also an interest from the business aspect. What makes you interested in what is happening, although you come in as a late stage investor, but what can you see that maybe will come for support actually to Blackstone at some point?
Well, if you think about where we are today, right? We're in Boston, we're the largest biotech hub, on the planet. You think about the number of jobs here, there are over 130,000 jobs in Massachusetts. The question is, why has this become such a large biotech hub? And, one of the reasons is that there are some amazing institutions around. So, you look at Harvard and MIT, medical institutions as well, the Broad Institute, Dana-Farber, et cetera, et cetera. And then you look at all the talent that's available here. And, when you compare that with, the impression that, the US folks would have of Greeks and the Greek ecosystem, you'd say that number one, Greeks are very highly respected. And, when you think about people who have been here in Marina and the HIN sort of network, like, my partner and head of the BXLS group, Nick Galakatos, or, you've had the Biogen chairman, CEO, CSO, Stelios Spiros and Michelle as well. Anna Protopapas, who's on the board with me at Ariad, et cetera. And the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 family with Electric. And, the list kind of goes on and on. And Roy Vagelos, the CEO of ex-CEO of Merck, et cetera. So the list kind of goes on and on in terms of the Greek diaspora and what, how the impression that Greeks have left, within the Greek community. In terms of the Greek ecosystem, I think most folks in Boston or other parts of the US would say that there's still great potential that needs to be realized. And it's there. I mean, we have some great institutions as well, some in Thessaloniki or Athens or Crete or Patra. However, there's still steps that need to be taken in order to build, obviously what we have here, or actually in other small countries in Europe. So you look at Switzerland, you look at Belgium, you look at Denmark, Sweden, et cetera. And, one of the questions to be asked is, what do they have that, that Greece doesn't? And I actually did a little bit of research, on this. And, the key ingredients are similar to what we have here in Boston. So you have Karolinska Institute or the Ludwig Institute of Cancer Research, places that you know, Katja, very well, and everyone in this room. So you have that amazing kind of history of innovation, talent, et cetera, that we can one can pull from. And so the question on what Greece can offer is one that I think we're a little bit sort of further back. There's also consistent and reliable funding and support by various organizations and the government in these countries. And so there's still more that Greece can do, obviously. And so the question is, which fields, which areas? How do you prioritize resources to provide something for the rest of the world that is meaningful and different to what's available here in Boston or in some of the countries that I mentioned? So there are many ways to do that. One is what Stelio and Eleni were mentioning earlier with LifeTech. There are questions around the therapeutic areas of interest and what these institutions across Greece are most experienced in and have some historical track record of research. And there's also digital innovation. So when you look at how much Greece spends on R&D, a lot more. Actually, it's a multiple more. Again, I was looking at this the other day. A lot more is being spent on digital R&D than R&D that most of us in life sciences are used to. So is that an easier win because we're maybe a little bit further ahead than we are on the science side, or are there specific niches within the R&D space that we can work in, again, like Stelio and Eleni were talking about earlier. So there's some perspectives as to how sort of someone from the Greek diaspora would see it, and maybe how my colleagues across the industry who are non-Greeks would also see where Greece could fit in.
Thank you. So there are some very recent actually, success stories from Greece, and that one is from Fleming Institute. So these are academic institutions. Fleming Institute, George Collier's group, that they have established a small CRO based on their research a couple of years ago, and now they even came up with a new molecule, again from research, that a small molecule for one of the diseases that they very well know, and they in the top groups in the world working on this. And the other comes from the University of Crete and a BioNature that Achilleas Gravanis spun off with one of the programs for support of innovation from academic centers. And as we read, it is it's licensed by Novolink, a leading company for making drugs in solutions, aqueous solution for eye disease. So both of those come from the academic institute, but it seems like now, because there has been 10 years of crisis and then a lot of, it is not only 10 years, it's how long you need to repair this injury. And so our academic institutions, we all have to admit that they are not ranked as they used to be when these two efforts started. So it seems like we go for a paradigm shift here, that it's coming from, it will be from the private sector with the help of Greek diaspora, as it happened to Israel and in other countries, I think, and drive also the institutes, the academic institutes, towards a more innovative way of applying the very good science that happens in some areas. And maybe join efforts, because we all know that 2, 3 does not make it anymore. Science changes, that you need bigger effort, usually. So are you working on this area? So how do you think that you will engage the academic community to believe in that? And do you have, we all know what the drug development means and what is the cost to have a drug out in the market when, or close to being the market, when the late investors will chime in. So do you have an idea where you think that your efforts will go? And in that case, of course, people like Paris and a lot of, in this room can help to say, okay, set it up for stage 1 or go to early 2 stage, and then look for a successful buy and commercialization by someone else who can make it happen in 5 and not in 15 years. So.
Thank you. There are actually many successes in Greece, I think. The company you mentioned out of Fleming Institute, Biomed Code, has been very successful working with the biggest pharma in the world in providing very specialty animal models of disease. And they're great, and Professor Colles has done a marvelous job. There are more examples. I mean, there's another company called Qualimetrics, which is a CRO essentially, which is doing analytical and bioanalytical development. We've seen examples of companies that have studied in Greece, not in the academic world necessarily, and they came to the US, and I'm talking about Miraculous, a company that Faye Christodoulou founded and brought here in the United States, and she recently, last year, had an exit, which are, stories of success. I feel that these stories of success serve as the catalysts to facilitate thinking about an end product. So not academic research for academic research, but doing something towards a product. From our perspective, the corridor you mentioned between US in particular and Greece is critical. That requires the help and support of a diaspora, because this is a catalytic in helping the innovators in Greece think along those lines and making the right connections that will facilitate the collaborations that will bring about the new ideas, bring about the new products. Last but not least, talking about drug discovery and development, we know very well there hasn't been much novel drug discovery and development. And I'm clearly separating this from things like generic drugs or biologic injectables. And we have had some success in the pharmaceutical industry in that direction over the past several decades, I think. It's more than 6 billion business. But in terms of drug innovation in Greece, I think this is where the diaspora can play a great role. I mean, on our board, we have innovators that have been doing this here in the United States, and there's many more people, many are here in this room. We'd love to actually have you in Greece and find a way of creating this corridor of collaboration between this advanced ecosystem here with the experience and the know-how that you guys have established to help us build a similar network in Greece in terms of putting together the people, the minds, the ideas, and connecting them with those people that know how to take the ideas, the basic ideas, and converting them into product ideas. Product value is something that needs to actually be brought into the picture, because once we do, I feel that we're going to see the opportunity for many more innovations coming out of Greece, which is what we want to establish in the LifeTech Park in Greece.
Last question on my side, and then we please open to the floor. And I would like to come back to what you said about the CRO that already you start, and Paris also opinion would be important here, and also to hear from people who work with CRO, and how do you think that the CRO in Greece will be selected among these great choices, the last array of choices that we have, and what is needed in order to move the needle, and just, is it going to be a niche CRO, or you think that a CRO that will do all the basics that are the foundation, actually, the niche foundation, will be able to make it? And who uses CRO, what would you like to see? It's only price, that I'm sure it is not, and the quality. How do you validate a CRO in order to move forward and believe in the data? Because that's where.
You want to start? Should I start? That's another great question. So we've done a lot of analysis to see what are the unmet needs out there. I mean, first of all, the personal example, I have been over the past 20 years involved with startup companies, you know, some successful, some not successful, but always the common factor was, okay, I need to outsource my early discovery, my early development. Who can I work with given that I don't have a lot of money in my bank account? So the time and the service you will get from the CRO, unfortunately, largely depends on, you know, how big of the project is, because there are projects with priorities, and that makes business sense. I'm not going to. It's part of life. But the problem as a startup company is, how do I find somebody that will prioritize my project ahead of other projects? How are they going to give me the time that I need? And it's not just the time in running the experiment, because the world is full of CROs that will do the experiment and will do it very well. You know, it's not a question of quality. There are many good CROs with a lot of quality. But as a startup company, I think you need more than that, rather than somebody throwing over the wall the results and say, oh, here's your PK results. Great. What do they mean? I'm giving you 5 molecules. Which one makes the most sense for me to pick and go to the next experiment? Because little decisions like this are the biggest decisions in terms of risk and value in your process as a startup company. So this is part of our business approach. You know, this is the kind of CRO that we want to be. We want to put in the focus the startup client. Okay, doesn't mean we don't want to work with bigger clients. Of course, we want to be successful as much as possible. But we want to start in this area because we believe there's an unmet need and there's a niche area. From a business standpoint, the cost of the studies, as you know, nowadays, even big CROs are looking for to outsource their work. The smaller CROs who don't have enough capacity. There's a huge world capacity issue, even though we still work with China and India and so on and so forth. Then you see Indian CROs that they're looking for places in Europe to work with. So the Indian CROs now outsourcing the work in Europe because they want to have established laboratories in the EU. So all this point in the direction that a place like Greece with great talent, scientific talent, with people with inspiration, motivation, and a vision to create something of value in Greece, and also with the ability to collaborate with people in the diaspora who have the know-how, right, and bring them along. And by the way, yes, we are looking to hire people. So if there's anybody that you know is interested in actually, you know, helping us in this, we'd love to get to know them. But I think all this will actually help us establish something that will be not only of business value, but also will generate the conditions to attract the startup companies towards a CRO like ours.
Yeah, I mean, very well said. The only thing I'd add to that is if you, just from experience, if you have a specific study that is relatively small and you require a specific set of experts, it's not always the best thing to go to big CRO. And to scale up the big CRO for this kind of venture, it takes a long time. So, there is definitely opportunity there. I would say there are some non-negotiables like quality assurance, quality control, analytics, etc. And we're sort of later stage investors, but the rigor at which we look at each investment goes all the way back to the very first experience, whether it's the computational science data, the preclinical, the first clinical studies, the pharmacology, the tox, so on and so forth. So quality of the service needs to be really important, and that would be the kind of only added point, which I know was embedded in your, in your thoughts, that I would really emphasize.
And questions for the panel?
I'm a venture partner, so it's a small fund out of Greece. How do you approach funding these endeavors in Greece? Given that right now, the biggest fund that I'm aware of is $100 million, and they're not at all focused on life sciences or in deep tech. I'll leave it open.
That's another great question. The question is basically in terms of the lack of a venture network in Greece focused, on drug innovation and drug, biotechnology. How do we plan on actually dealing with something like that and helping us fuel innovation in Greece and get startup companies funded? So it is an excellent question, and this is true. I mean, there's not a strong, if you will, venture system in Greece. There are a couple of groups, like 𝗏 has made some investments, not exactly in drug discovery, but in drug development, and they've been quite successful. But at the same time, we know that the EIF is putting together a call that for the development of a new venture based in Greece that will focus on investments, and they're not specific to biotech, but we hope that the winning proposals will include at least a part of them being biotech drug innovation, because we do know that the EIF is trying to actually leverage as much as possible of this untapped resource in Greece, untapped network in Greece. But still, the important thing is also the two parts of the equation. The one is having the venture network that will support the ventures. The other part is, how do you help the new ventures coming out of Greece to develop a strong enough proof of concept such that they won't be limited by the closed borders of Greece as a place to go and look for funds, right? And in particular in biotech, this is kind of like the normal path, I feel, because we all know how big investments are needed to get even to a phase 1 study, and going even further, even if it's a small indication, you need hundreds of millions. So at the end of the day, every successful venture, no matter if it's from Greece or any other part of the world, they'll have to get out of their geographic limits and solicit investments from the bigger ecosystems, whether Western Europe or it's Japan or the United States. So this is the other question: how do we improve the quality of the ventures coming out of Greece, such that when they go out in the bigger stage and they're competing against other, good ideas, how do they have a POC that'll be a winner in raising funds?
May I ask, also from the audience, I would like to ask an old friend who is here, Mary Woods, who is in this business from Merck to other companies for years now, just to tell us on your side, from business in US, in this area, what would make you confident to go with a project to a CRO in Greece, and how would you justify it if you wish when in your budgets?
That's what we get when you're a friend from long time.
Yes.
So the CRO is a very, very big organization and has lots of services. I think depends on where you are on development. You must look at the different services and see if there is a focus where you can have. It's almost impossible to think that you can full range CRO. That's the space is taken, so to speak. And all of these deals on the CRO are given from the headquarters of pharma and biotech. So it is smart to actually focus on an area of CROs. We do have some extra opportunities because now different data that they're getting into the system from all the discovery and all the way into patients, they also produce new opportunities. So let's think not the CRO, but let's think what we can do with it. Thank you, Katya.
Thank you, Mary. And also one more question on my side. Oh, okay.
I'm also in the R&D space, but I'm also a physician scientist and will continue being. I would like to perhaps ask a question, because I keep hearing about discovery and CROs and the early stage, but building a new drug is a value chain that has many steps. And I think a space where Greece has a lot of potential to to thrive is with regards to sustainability, because patients do not have the right testing for many reasons, as we know. And going back to the example of Israel, very smart opportunity to create the hubs, but to offer end-to-end solutions. So an ecosystem with a system with hospitals generating real-world evidence that come from that area and also propel the early phase studies of that translation. So something smart to think, leveraging also digital innovation that is shining in this area.
That's an excellent comment. In fact, one of the things that we're looking into collaborating with the part of the ecosystem in Greece that actually is into hospitals, doing some early drug discovery, repositioning mostly work, but not only, and to see how we can help advance that part of the ecosystem in Greece, because it's another part of the equation.
And one of the bright lights recently has been Pfizer's investment in the Center of Digital Innovation Thessaloniki, near the Aristotle University. And again, a lot of R&D, a lot of the R&D budget is going towards that side of things as opposed to the basic science side of things. And there are a lot of young and not so young, super talented people in that area. So to leverage AI to mine real-world evidence and ensure that you're picking the right patients for clinical trials, as well as other uses of AI as well, more on the discovery side, is I think a very smart way to go. So that's a very good question, and I think that could be as well as some of the things that we talked about today, a potentially easier win.
Speaking about easier wins, I had a question. So in terms of investors' comfort and currently where you look at the Greek ecosystem, and most of the capital is coming from sources that are very familiar with cash flows. And obviously drug development is a very, very long process. What earlier wins should the ecosystem be focusing on that can get investors comfortable so that they have a big win and then turn around and regurgitate that capital into longer term investments? And I guess what efforts to do with CEUs that are being made in that direction?
I think it all starts with the quality of the basic science. Looking at what pockets within Greece are investing in specific therapeutic areas, specific modalities that are on par or getting close to what the rest of the world can offer. I think that would be the starting point. I don't know the status of where we are with rare diseases in Greece, but where you have genetic variants that are Mendelian, where your probability of success could be higher to move across various development stages, could be an area. But exactly as you said, discovery, R&D, it's a long process, and you have to be committed. You have to have reliable funding, support, investment over those stages, and you have to be a little bit, or not a little bit, quite a lot ahead of the game of where others are. So I think an analysis of what are the best centers, the capabilities, and what expertise they can bring that others don't is probably the starting point. And the rare diseases example is just an example. I don't know how advanced we are or not in the various great Greek institutions that we have.
And the last question. I think we should stop. Yes, we're going to need time. Thank you.
Apologies. So we want to make sure we have time for networking. There's going to be food and wine afterwards. Thank you all so much. That was fabulous. So now we're going to have, by the way, I hadn't realized he was here, but Michael Dszanis, can you raise your hand? Michael is the one leading our efforts in Chicago. So thank you, Michael, for your support. And if the startups can come up here, and this panel of startups will be moderated by 𝗦𝗁𝗶𝗵𝗁 who is a venture capitalist based here in Boston. And we just want to get you to know who they are. And please, for the entrepreneurs, if you have an ask, make a specific ask of this audience. And audience, if there's anything you can do to help them on their way, please make sure to introduce yourself to them during the networking.
Thank you, Marina. I want to thank Marina 𝗏𝗏𝗫𝗀𝗀, because 4 years ago, I was an automotive engineer in Detroit, and right now I'm an investor in Boston, and she has been a great mentor and a friend. And about the great question about the Greek ecosystem, it takes a lot of effort, like ELPEN's effort to create an ecosystem, but it also takes a lot of educating other investors. I work at a venture capital fund based in Palo Alto that's only Americans, Asian Americans, and the only Greek. And we have done 2 investments related in Greece. One is 𝗙𝗵𝗂𝗃, where we have operations in Greece. But it takes time, it takes education, it takes effort. But when they see the results, I think it's a good outcome. So we're here for entrepreneurs. And I would like you to, each one of you, start with introductions about yourselves and the companies, and then we'll continue with a few questions.
I'll go first. Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be here today. My name is 𝗦𝗁𝗶𝗵𝗵𝗁, born and raised in Greece from a small town called Trikala. I have co-founded a company called Sight Medical. It's a Stanford University spin-off. And our focus has been since the very beginning in the space of clinical neurology. We are building Miracle AI, a platform that combines AI and sensors to enable very quick diagnosis of acute neurological events. Our first indication is stroke. Every year, roughly 1 million people here in the US alone get a stroke, but unfortunately 90% of them do not get treatment, despite the fact that we have very good solutions, whether it is thrombolysis or most recently thrombectomy. Our technology enables the detection of these events within minutes, compared to the current standard of care, which is multiple hours. This has direct impact both on clinical outcomes and overall expenditure. It accounts for up to $50 billion every year in direct cost. Our company has already received FDA breakthrough designation. We're in clinical stage. We have deployed it already in 20 hospitals here in the US, and we're very fortunate to have very good collaboration with Greek KOLs too. And currently we are at seed stage, and I'm going to speak more about the ask later on. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Hi, everyone. I'm Irinie Schlosser. I'm CEO and founder of Diana Health. I think there were already some mentions of finding patients for clinical studies and how AI can be helpful in that. I got into the space by way of having focused on a technology type of AI called natural language processing for the last decade. Actually, Orestes when I was nowhere near the healthcare life sciences space. And in 2018, 2019, I had a few of my former investors who actually owned hospitals that got acquired by a group called Optum. For those of you who are familiar with the subsidiary of UnitedHealth. At the time, they asked me about the value of electronic medical records from a clinical research perspective and the free text that was buried within those medical records and how it could be used to help facilitate clinical trials. I had been focusing on natural language processing for a while and its various iterations through the last decade with the invention of transformers, et cetera. And the long story short is I founded the company in January of 2020 with funding out of the gate, and we spent the majority of the pandemic training a large language model to understand and draw conclusions from medical records. The applications are in finding patients for clinical studies as their clinical characteristics are changing over time, as well as automating things like manual chart abstraction, which would take a human 30 to 45 minutes, if not longer, to read and derive certain conclusions. And so That's just 2 applications. We are working with healthcare systems, academic medical centers specifically, representing around 15 million electronic medical records at the moment. We just, and it has not been announced, but we just oversubscribed our Series A and are hiring as quickly as we can to be able to handle that demand. Obviously, with ChatGPT, everyone suddenly knows what large language model means. So we're pretty busy and excited to be here.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? So I'm Evie. I'm the founder and CEO of 𝗬𝗏. We use immersive VR and AI to gamify and quantify movement rehabilitation. So a bit of background. I'm a neuroscientist by background. I did a PhD in clinical and movement neurosciences. I worked very closely with stroke survivors under a key opinion leader in the field. So our research has shown that where we usually have 12% recovery outcomes within the first 6 months post-stroke, if we actually provide intensive physiotherapy, that can become 60%. But currently, because healthcare systems are overloaded, there is no way to provide physiotherapy with that intensity unless someone does that at home. So one great technology to actually look at movement patterns is VR, because it sits on your body. We know how you move in 3D space, and it can incentivize people to actually gamify the process, the mundane process and repetitive process of actually doing rehabilitation. Our AI specifically looks at what healthy movement patterns are and what unhealthy movement patterns are, because if you want to learn how to juggle, just throwing balls in the air will not make that happen. You need to reduce the error of your movement. So this is what we do uniquely with AI technology. And so we're a UK-based company where we've got a very strong pull to the US market. We are UKCA certified. We're selling in the UK. We are FDA registered as well, so we can sell in the US now as well. And we've got partnerships here to commercialize. So I think I'll talk about the rest later. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is 𝗦𝗫𝗀𝗫𝗀𝗫𝗀𝗫𝗀𝗫. I was born and raised in Athens, and I came here to the US for my graduate degree. After that, I spent almost 20 years in pharma R&D, then another 5 years in the biotech and VC world. The last 2 years, I've been focusing on a company I started in the area of radiotherapeutics. This is an emerging, very promising area in the cancer treatment. Basically, what we do is deliver radioisotopes, radioactivity, specifically into tumors by linking radionuclides to small molecules or peptides that recognize specifically proteins on the surface of tumor cells, not in normal cells. This is a proven technology already. There are 2 drugs like this that have been in the market now. They're both marketed by Novartis. Novartis actually has proven that this approach is scalable commercially and possible. And basically, we're working on the new generation of such agents to cover more types of cancer. And right now, we're raising our Series A.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Thras Strasivoulos Karidis. I'm born and raised in Greece, in Corfu. Came here for my PhD back in 2014, and then 5 years later, started 𝗕𝗏𝗀, co-founded it with a fellow Israeli colleague. 𝗕𝗏𝗀 is an AI and biotech company. We're working on inflammation and immunology. Our most advanced asset is now towards the clinic on rheumatoid arthritis. We have excellent animal model data. Our platform is based primarily on generative AI. We have, our biggest technology is a model that can create molecules out of known reactions and building blocks that satisfy all the different things you want to satisfy for a drug: efficacy, ADME, tox, and safety. And in the process, we realized that there's not a good chemistry CRO, by the way. So we had to build our own chemistry automation lab, and we now have one of the largest organic chemistry synthesis automation labs in the world. And we're actually trying to spin it out as a separate company because we realized it's a big enough ask for it. I'll end with saying that I've been very exposed to the Israeli entrepreneurship ecosystem. Our first investors were Israeli, and we have really good relationship. And I would love to see opportunities like this to bring that entrepreneurship ecosystem in Greece. Thank you.
Thank you for the introductions. So I will start with the first question, which is mostly about our audience to be aware about the challenges that you have faced in order to expand from Europe to the US and vice versa. So we see how this community here can help you and support. And I want to start the first response with Irini, because she has done something completely different. She has been from the US to Greece, which is pretty unique.
Sure. So we started the business actually, surprisingly enough, in Los Angeles in the pandemic. Quickly moved that to New Jersey, and having our funding out of the gate January 2020 allowed for us to figure out, and had the blessing in disguise of the pandemic was that we were forced to be creative, and creativity brought us to setting up a subsidiary in a country that was open at the time, which was Greece. And the noticing of a unique business hack, if you will, in that physicians in Greece have a gap of 3 to 5 years before starting their residencies. So we started hiring junior physicians who were otherwise looking to go abroad, to the US, to Switzerland, Germany, et cetera, and having them annotate databases of EMR. So they would read the case, they would generate questions, they would generate the proper answers. We had them taking US boards. That resulted in some of them going to residencies in the US, but that's okay. And then the program just started to expand from there. And so really, most companies do the reverse of setting up engineering in Greece. We have some software engineering, but really the engine of 𝗏 is our clinical team in Athens. And we basically, take physicians, turn them into quasi data scientists, and now internally, actually, they're led by a team that's finished residencies in the US and wanted to go back to Greece for personal reasons. So, our senior clinical director was at MSK and NYU in New York in oncology, and then landed in Greece by way of McKinsey, and just has, put the consulting process in place within our clinical team, and that's been a fantastic experience. So I think there's creative nuances that other countries or other startups didn't have. You wouldn't be able to find a team of physicians at the seed stage in the US to work full-time annotating data dictionaries. So I think that it really gave us a very unique edge, and it's about taking advantage of the cards you're given. But I don't know if that addresses the questions of structurally how to go from the US to Greece, but I could go on for war stories for a while of what it's like to set up a company in Greece.
That's very useful, because some of the audience might be a founder soon. So yeah, so Eve, tell us about your story.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you said if they tell us.
Because you started in Europe, not in, right?
Yeah, so in the UK. We're not in the US yet, but we've got a very strong pull to come here. So we commercialized in the UK. We've got the largest private healthcare providers. We've got some NHS contracts as well. We always knew we were going to expand to the US. The biggest market for us is here. The healthcare system works quite more favorably with our technology. And we had advisors that helped us with the FDA. So we got the FDA approval quite early. So we started to explore connections in the US. And randomly, one of our mentors in one of the programs that we were part of connected us to the director of rehabilitation at Mount Sinai, who has seen a lot of different technologies in our space, and he got really excited with ours. And so we're in contractual processes with them already. We're looking to do a flip of the company, and another connection with Cedars-Sinai as well. So they have inpatients, and they want to look at the inpatient model, whereas Mount Sinai want to look at the outpatient remote model with our technology. So with Mount Sinai, they're going to be making additional revenues that we're going to be making a cut out of. And with Cedars-Sinai, the opportunity is 4 times bigger as well, because the president of the Physiotherapist Society in America, Dr. Pamela Roberts. She's the one who's championing our technology, and she's convinced that with the technology, people will be discharged faster if they're using the technology at their bedside whilst they do the rehabilitation separately. So we ended up getting in contractual processes with them as well. So what we're doing now is that we're raising a round in order to achieve that and come to the US. So we're in that limbo already.
Thank you. We'll cover the round next. Andrea, you're going to go.
The biggest challenge, right? For us, the biggest challenge is fundraising, especially this time of the nuclear winter of.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
So this is where we're focusing right now, get the money. But once we get the money, we have actually a plan for Greece. We want to actually work with the CRO in Greece that works in this kind of niche area in radiotherapeutics. There's not a lot of CROs around the world in this area, probably 4 or 5. But surprisingly, there's one of the best ones in Greece called BioNTech. It was founded by a professor in engineering in Athens called, his name is George Loudos. This company started very small, but actually has already a great reputation around the world. So we're planning to have a strategic collaboration with BioNTech to grow our business, but also help them grow their business too. I think, again, CROs in Greece make a lot of sense, especially now the timing is really right for that. This is what happened in China over the last 25 years, and this is how China now is becoming a leader in innovative drug discovery. I think Greece and everybody, because of course of the geopolitical frictions, companies are fleeing China and they're looking for the next areas to do business, and I think Greece could be part of that solution.
Thank you. Thrasivoulos, you said that you also fundraising.
Yeah, and actually I will just continue Andreas' point on the CRO. We are using CROs all over the world. We are using CROs in Ukraine, China, India, and we also build our own lab. I was describing before the chemistry automation in Israel. And we run into a big challenge, which was logistics. Shipping compounds from the place you make them to the place you test them to the place you do the next test, and so on and so forth. And that's why big companies like Eurofins or 𝗬𝗎 that are end-to-end now CROs make so much sense because they optimize the logistics within their ecosystem. So we ended up finding the solution of literally using exactly the same building to synthesize the molecule and do all of our ADME and DMPK testing. So I think that what I would love to see, to come to Greece, and use a Greek CRO is understand the logistics of it. And actually in Israel, it was extremely hard, of course, obviously due to the war, but even in general to get anything inside and out of the country. And Greece being in the European Union, I think is extremely more favorable. And, with Eurofins, we work with French CROs and Spanish CROs that they were later acquired. So it was pretty exciting. So yeah, that has been the biggest challenge. And now I agree that there's definitely a lot of the geopolitical friction created a lot of opportunity to move fast, and there are going to be companies that want to make the molecules outside of China, especially in the US now. There's a very big drive to create US-based foundries. Yeah, my biggest challenge is moving compounds from place A to place B and slowing down the iteration cycle. So I guess what I would look on CRO and what's actually the biggest bottleneck for DeepQ right now is how can I drive my DMTA, design, make, test, analyze cycle as slow as possible. The AI models work. In a couple of days, I can get you 10 new ideas. How can I make them fast enough to get back the results in a relevant time frame?
Oresti?
I'm probably going to speak more about advantages of doing things in Greece. So I come more from a medical technology perspective here. Of course, CROs is a thing there too when you're running larger clinical trials. However, sometimes the intricacies of running these medical device protocols require that you have a hands-on approach on what's happening. So it requires very good collaboration with the people on the ground, and that's oftentimes the nurses, the physicians who are deploying your system. Now, when we started our clinical stage with Site Medical, of course, we wanted to focus on the US market first, which is very interesting for us. We ended up deploying our technology in 20 hospitals. For a small startup with less than $2 million in the bank, it is already a feat that we got there, but it is an expensive, very expensive game. So the other challenge here in the US, I don't know if any of you have worked in the space of stroke, is that it's a very competitive space in terms of getting patients involved. It's a very hard space. So oftentimes you're going to have a great candidate that you would enroll, that they're already enrolled in some thrombectomy study and now they're disqualified. Fast forward into Greece, last year I had the chance to be connected with the president of the Hellenic Stroke Organization there, who was like very fond of the idea. What's special is that a lot of the technology development space in Greece has been primarily driven by pharma, medical devices, and software as a medical device has not really been a thing there. So people were hungry for that. And I'll just give you a number from conceiving the idea of a protocol to first patient in the first hospital in Greece, it took us like a couple of months. In the US, it took us a year. So that's the benefit, especially if you're in the non-invasive space or digital therapeutics, digital health. Very easy, and I highly recommend it. People are great, and I think there is a real interest in medical devices there. Of course, on top of whatever interest there is for pharma. Yeah.
Thanks for the positive.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, I think that really is highlighting a very important opportunity increase because it's really a blue ocean right now. If you think of how many drugs are coming to market just for non-small cell lung cancer in the US versus the number of patients that actually exist, and then that ratio in Greece, it's, you're looking at dozens of patients more just from the. Yeah.
We've done already 200 patients in 6 months in Greece. It took us 6 months to get 20 in the US. So that's the scale.
That's great. So I think we still have about 5 minutes, and I think it's great for the founders to share their ask about fundraising, customers, connections. So let's start with him.
So we're currently raising our seed round. It's $4 million USD. We've got some commitments already, but we're looking for a lead. We are looking for a US lead. That would be great, and we would be considering the flip of the company as well. Our second ask is for more connections within the healthcare provider space that have stroke units as well. So thank you.
Sarasibula, you want to go next?
Sure. We actually just closed a funding round, Series A extension, so hopefully we have money for a little bit. But we're now in the phase of trying to go to the clinic with our first molecule and indications. We're in the space of rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, and other inflammatory diseases. We're trying to recruit, KOLs and trying to actually strategize around where to do the first trial. Australia comes up always as the easiest way to go. Potentially some UK specific trials, but any information, any people to connect, or any advice on what to do in your first clinical trial and what not to do would be super helpful.
Andrea?
Yes, so we're a seed stage company. We actually raised in our seed $5 million, and we use that actually very efficiently. We already discovered a clinical candidate with that money, and also established a platform for the discovery of additional compounds in this area. So right now we're raising our Series A, $51 million. We're talking to everybody. It's, as I said, it's pretty tough, despite the fact that we have good data and very well differentiated compound. But we're very, very hopeful that this will work out. And yeah, I'm here to network, obviously, because of that, and also understand the opportunities in Greece further down the road with, as I said, CRO collaborations, but also clinical trials and things like that.
So on our side, we are at the seed stage 2. Previously, we were backed by Y Combinator and a couple of Silicon Valley VCs. We are now raising a seed round, which is $6 million. And as I said, we're already on clinical stage. We have data in the breakthrough designation. We're in what I call an inflection point. Very soon, we're going to have our first clearance for the use of our AI within the OR, where we're detecting stroke as surgery is happening. the next step with this round is going to be also to target the ICU and stroke units. And eventually we have a vision about bringing our technology to the home setting. Definitely open also to introductions with people that might have experienced stroke themselves or they have connections in the domain. We are primarily based in the West Coast, so I know Boston is definitely an exciting place, and there's a lot of good things being done in neurology here, Joe. Thank you.
We have been very fortunate, I think, in terms of hunting down breadcrumb trails that they've led to good things at the end. So we are continuously looking to expand those breadcrumb trails. And so I personally would really appreciate any introductions for advisors or groups that may be interested from either a healthcare system perspective and how that would work there. Typically, we're working with CIOs, chief informatics officers, research informatics officers, and medical informatics officers at the academic institutions. And I'll keep my eyes there.
Thank you. I want to thank all the founders. I think we were late, so there is no time for questions, but you can grab a drink and ask them as many questions as you can, and please connect. Thank you.